Somewhere in our business, there's a point of constraint. There's a kink in the hose. And that kink is preventing you from getting where you want to get. Our job as CEOs is to find the kink and open it up. And the kink really only exists in 3 locations in your business.
Welcome to another episode of the Play Big Faster podcast. I am really excited about this episode. We have Jim Schleckser in the building. And when I say in the building, virtually, but he's here to give you guys all sorts of great tips and to tell you a little bit more about his company. He is the founder and CEO of the Lazy CEO Project. He's also a podcast host, and there are just so many great things that we hope to uncover in this episode. Jim, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Scherrie. I'm excited to be here. It's like Elvis. Elvis never left the building.
I know that two things that may not seem related can exist in the same vacuum. How can we become lazy CEOs?
Yeah, and the book is Great CEOs Are Lazy. And I think that's really true because people that are great at their job are strategic about how they apply their time. And all the stuff that just consumes our time, they go, yeah, I'm not doing that. And so they spend the right amount of time on the critical issue, what we call the kink in the hose or the point of constraint. You should dig into that idea. And all the other stuff, they go, I'm going to either delegate it, defer it, don't do it, get it off my plate. So they end up working kind of a normal human being's number of hours, and yet they get amazing results. So there is a better way, and that's really what the book describes about being a great and lazy, putting those two together, CEO.
So tell me, what came first, you as an author or you as a podcast host and a coach?
Well, the book goes back to 2016, pardon me. So the book came first. The podcast, funny enough, came from COVID. I would, on Thursday mornings, do a Zoom call with my members, CEO members, because we work with CEOs in CEO peer groups in the CEO project. And, it was in the beginning, nobody had anything else going on. So 40, 50 people would show up. We'd talk about different issues. As COVID started to end, the crowd, went down and down, dropping down and down. And yet the content I thought was pretty solid, as did the members. I said, well, either we're going to end it or we're going to change it to a podcast. So we've been doing the podcast. We've got just over 100 episodes now. So, a couple of years we've been doing the podcast. So it's newer than the book.
Gotcha. Let's talk about how to be strategic and how we can make business owners, we can help business owners work on the business and not in the business as CEOs and business owners.
And that's really the point of this. The idea here is if you had a garden hose and there was a kink in the hose, you could do work anywhere on that hose, but the only work that would actually open up the hose and get the water flowing is finding the kink and opening it up. Well, the same thing's true in our business. Somewhere in our business, there's a point of constraint. There's a kink in the hose. And that kink is preventing you from getting where you want to get, whether it's revenue, profitability, number of customers that you serve, whatever it is. So our job as CEOs is to find the kink and open it up. Now, here's what's interesting. The kink really only exists in 3 locations in your business. It's either your business model, what you do for who, how you charge, so forth. So we call that the architect hat, designing your business. The second is the coach hat, which is people. Do you have the right people in the business? Are they headed in the right direction? Do you need to coach them up? And sometimes we need to get them off the bus and free their services to other people, unfortunately. And then the third is the systems you use, the processes and systems you use to run your business. And, as we grow our business, what used to work when we were $1 million or $2 million or $3 million, those same approaches don't work when you're 10, 20. So you have to, what we call engineer, that's the engineer hat, modify your processes. So when you're CEO, you go, okay, is it my business model that's stopping me? Is it the talent that's stopping me? Or is it the processes and systems we use in our business? And really, that's where you should spend most of your time as a CEO.
So let's talk about maybe starting with solopreneurs. You have a great idea. You have figured out how to create this awesome widget. And so now you're trying to take it to market. How do I transition from a solopreneur, through these phases as a CEO and actually, start building my team?
And there's a great book called The E-Myth Revisited by a guy named Michael Gerber. He's unfortunately passed, but he really talks about this. And the idea here is that engineer hat is your difference maker. What you want to do is take what's in your brain, because you know how to do it. Nobody else knows how to do it. Move it in a way that you can train somebody else to do a job. And now you've got the beginnings of building the company. And your job at that point is obviously going to still be work, because there's only one or maybe two of you in the business. But you should be thinking about, how do we do this better, faster, cheaper? And then over time, how do we get the next person into the business as we scale it? So it's make it teachable, bring somebody on, make it better, faster, cheaper, bring another person on, another person on, another person on. That's the model. But you won't get there unless you start thinking about, what is the system I'm going to use to do this that I can teach to somebody else? If you can't teach it, you can never grow. So that's the first thing.
As you are implementing this process and you are putting together repeatable systems that grow in your business, in your opinion, going from a solopreneur to actually building a company, who are some of the first key employees would you recommend, regardless of the industry, that a solopreneur may want to employ to help grow the business?
Well, the easiest people to hire in the beginning are really two categories. Category one, salespeople, to get you more revenue somehow. And then the second is people that are directly in whatever you do that adds value to people. So if you're in a services business, that might be somebody who's going to deliver service. If you're in a manufacturing business, it might be somebody who's going to help you make product. So either more people on the value creation side, if you've got lots of revenue, or somebody on the creating more revenue side, if you don't have enough of that. So it kind of depends on your circumstance, but I would say one of those two positions are your first two hires. So maybe now you got three. You got a revenue generator, another person doing execution, you got you. There's your three in the beginning.
Yeah, and one thing that I love the concept of fractional employees, where you'll have your fractional COO, CIO, and different people to come in and help you work in your business to get some of these things done. Just in your opinion, what are your thoughts on hiring fractional employees or contractors versus employees?
Yeah, well, we do it already, right? In the beginning of your business, you're not going to hire a full-time accountant. You're going to hire an accounting service that'll do your books for a few hours a month, whatever is required. So for those of you that don't think you do fractional employees, newsflash, you already do. I think what's cool about fractionals is the level of talent you have access to is far higher than you could ever hire if you tried to do it full-time, right? So let's say you're going to hire a COO, and if you're going to hire that person full-time, it might cost you $100,000, $200,000 a year. What if I took 20 hours of their time a month? Well, that might be a heck of a lot cheaper, and I get this amazing individual for a lot less money. And what we find is when somebody's really skilled, they tend to be very efficient. So you go, well, geez, 20 hours a week, how are they going to do it? I'm telling you, somebody who's really highly skilled, 20 hours a month or a week, is going to beat somebody doing 40 hours a week or 40 every day of the week, because they're going to be super smart about where they spend their time and how they spend their time. So I think there's a lot of bang for the buck in fractionals, COOs, CROs, CMOs, CHROs. You're not going to hire a full-time HR person anytime soon. Go get somebody part-time. But yeah, I'm a big fan in the early days.
For so many CEOs, if you are an early founder and this is your very first company, you are bound to make so many mistakes, but that is just part of the learning process. What are some of the mistakes that you see early founders making, and maybe some options they may want to consider, so they don't have to learn the same lessons over and over?
Maybe a couple. One is you believe your own press clippings. You really think you're all that in a bag of chips, and you need somebody's, maybe it's a spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend, or a CEO peer group like what we do, to say, hey, wait a minute. Like the voice and the audio, the video and the audio don't quite match up here. You may think you're amazing, but I'm telling you, there's some cracks in the foundation you deal with before you go to the next level. So somebody will tell you the truth is important. Unfortunately, might be telling you your baby's ugly, which nobody likes to hear, but
Nobody likes to hear that.
Right, it might be true, and you need to deal with that. So I think that's an important one. I think another one, as you grow, we all come with a gift into our business, whether it's sales or marketing or finance or whatever we're good at. Over time, you want to bring people in underneath you to do that. And I find as people grow, when you bring somebody in who does what you're really good at, very hard to delegate it. And that can limit the growth of a company if you are not able to bring people in and let them do their jobs. And like I said, it's super hard when they're doing something you're great at, because you look at it and go, well, I would do that a little bit different. I would do it this way, not that way. And all of a sudden you're back in doing the job and you're not able to elevate your coin work on the business instead of in the business. You get stuck in the business, if you will. And maybe the third and last one I'll talk about, I mean, there's 20 ways to mess up, but I'll give you three, is what I call info-maniacs. Info-maniacs, meaning you just need all the information. I want to be involved in every detail. I want to know about every decision. Well, you just run out of you. You can't work enough hours to do that as your business grows and grows. And once again, you as the leader become the point of constraint, right? Because if all decisions and all information has to run through the leader, well, eventually you can't do anymore. And then that's how big your business is and it stops. So that's a big one I see.
This is so good. So tell us about all the great things that we can anticipate if we, get your book, because I know sometimes people want to do their research. They want to, Google, who is Jim? What is Jim about? Tell us about the book and what we can expect.
Yeah, well, the book really describes this idea of the kink in the hose, or the point of constraint, and how it applies to a business. It also talks about how to find the kink in your business with two other hats that we didn't really talk about, and then how to fix the point of constraint using architect, engineer, or coach hat. And so, people have read it and said they always leave with a few ideas. And that was my goal when writing it. I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of business books. And I go, if I get 2, 3, 5 good ideas out of a book, it's a win. That was my goal with writing, is that people would come away with, a page of ideas that they could bring into the business. And I think we may have hit the mark. I mean, the book has now sold over 100,000 copies, which is pretty good seller. So it seems to have some traction, and the people I've talked to get things out of it. So that's what you can expect. And we did talk about making an offer to your listeners if they want to get a copy of the first chapter digitally. They provide you their email and you get it to us. We will send them first chapter of the book in digital form. And to be honest, we wrote it so that the introduction, the first chapter, pretty much gives you the concepts of the book. You want to go deeper, you need to probably get it, but it'll give you a good feeling for what's going on. So it was an offer for your listeners.
And we'll definitely put that in the show notes. So Jim, I know that there's not one clear path to success as a business owner at all. I mean, there are just a million ways to get to one location. But for those who are starting a business and they are looking, to be the business owner and not actually the person who's running the business day to day, what are some of the things, using some of the methods in the book and the advice in the book, that they can think of going in? So you have someone who's just never run a business and they're considering a business. What are some of your thoughts?
So I had a friend who approached me with exactly that scenario. He was an expert in his field, and he was now going to start a business doing what he was doing for someone else. And he goes, all right, Jim, what do I need to know? I go, all right, 3 things that you need to know to be an effective entrepreneur if you're starting a business. Number 1, don't run out of cash. In other words, you need to have enough cash in your business when you started to deal with not having a lot of revenue and paying people that you need to have on staff and so forth. Can't run out of cash. If you run out of cash, the music stops, the business is over. That's the end of that. If you have cash, you can solve any problem. It just takes some amount of time, but every problem is solvable if you have cash available. He goes, got it. Don't run out of cash. What's number 2? Number 2 is don't run out of cash. And number 3 is don't run out of cash. Look, 90% of all small businesses go out of business within the first 5 years. The reason they go out of business is they run out of cash. And so people think about the P&L as the way to run the business, the profit and loss statement. No. Early days, watch the cash. You should only worry about cash. How much cash is coming in? How much cash is going out? How much cash is in the bank? And if those things are working out, don't worry about anything else, because that's your survival metric, if you will. Everything else is secondary to surviving because we have enough in cash. Now, once you're comfortable that that's happening, now we can focus on some other things. Cash is king, queen, prince, princess, everything. Cash is the whole deal. So that'd be my one super piece of advice for somebody starting up a new business.
Okay. And so, oh my gosh, I have so many questions around that because, I may be one of those people who is obsessed with information and things like that. But when you're looking at cash, is there like a healthy ratio between your expenses, your recurring debt, and the amount of cash that you want to look at in a business that you can kind of use across different platforms of your business?
Yeah. And, obviously some things that help having cash is high margin in your business. Subscriptions are good, so you know where your money's coming from, as opposed to, well, it's project to project. I hope they get another project. Those are negative to cash. And businesses that don't require a lot of capital, like big pieces of equipment or lots of real estate, those are negative to cash. So if you had high margin, high recurrence, low capital, those are all good. Having said that, I like to see 2 to 3 months of expenses in the bank. That's sort of my comfortable number. And so let's say you're running a business that your monthly expenses are $100,000, just so I can do the math in my head. If you told me you had $300,000 in the bank, cash money, I'd be okay, I'm feeling pretty good about that. If you went above that, you could probably distribute it to yourself. But just like on a personal level, you want to have a certain amount of cash in your bank, just like, what if I lost my job? This is for an employee. Or what if my refrigerator blew up, or I had a big car repair, or you need a certain amount of cash to deal with those unexpected things. Same exact thinking in your business. So 2 to 3 months, I like 3 better than 2, but that would be my shoe. And if you had 10 months in the bank, I would say that's too much. You really don't need that.
Well, and you brought up something that was so important, and I don't think a lot of business owners consider this. Almost any business can have a subscription service for their clients. Literally. I mean, you don't have to be a certain type of business to have a subscription model in your business. And I mean, it's there for you to have predictable, reliable income. So if you're offering a service or even, a product, there's a way that you can monetize a subscription service in your business, definitely.
Yeah, look at, I'll give you 2 examples. The software industry used to be sell a big chunk of software and then we get a maintenance stream. And now they're all software as a service. Well, all they really did is change the pricing model to a subscription model. That's all they did. It's the same software, it's the same stuff. So that was, and by the way, investors love subscription models. You increase the value of your business so you have more subscription. Look at HVAC companies. It used to be, they're like, hey, we're here when it breaks, give us a call. But now they're all selling maintenance contracts, and we'll come in and check your filters and check your flues and make sure everything's good. Well, that's designed, just as you said, to build subscription revenue into a model that never had it before. So yeah, anybody can do it, for sure.
So Jim, I almost feel selfish asking you this, but I have to because we ask everyone on the podcast. If you had just one single piece of advice to share with entrepreneurs on how to play big faster in their business, and I know you've given us so much already, but just dig a little bit deeper, share with us what that advice would be.
Yeah, as a smaller firm, here's the biggest thing you can do. Find a big brother or big sister partner. There is somebody that is in your industry that if you could tie yourself to them, they will bring you places you could never get on your own. And that's the secret to achieving really big things. Otherwise, you're doing it on your own. An example here is Microsoft, way back when. I don't know if people know the story, but Microsoft was a little teeny software company. But what happened is they convinced IBM to put their software on every single PC. This is in the early days of PCs. Well, look at Microsoft now. It's a billion dollar company. But the thing that got them launched is they found a big brother partner, IBM, tied themselves to that wagon, and they grew like crazy. I'll give you another. We dealt with one company that did training for SAP, the big software company. And they would do training for people on how to use the system and what happens when there are changes and so forth. They hitched their wagon to SAP and built a $300 million business on stuff that just SAP didn't really want to do. And they're perfectly happy to let these guys do it. So find yourself a big brother or big sister and let them bring you places you can never get on your own. Be my one double top secret, but now you all know it, and how to grow a big business fast.
So Jim, look, there are so many people who probably want to continue this conversation. What is the best way to reach out to you if they like to, learn a little bit more about you, or even to, look at you for coaching or some of your services?
Sure. So you can find us at theceoproject.com, and learn all about what we do and so forth. And if you want to chat, you can fill the form out and we'll reach out to you. Obviously, you can buy the book, Great CEOs Are Lazy, on Amazon. And the podcast is called The CEO Project Podcast. You can listen to that on Spotify, Apple, all the places you like to listen. Those would be a couple ways to engage.
Well, look, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, this is phenomenal. Thanks.
And to everyone else, until next time, play big faster.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Play Big Faster podcast. Want more entrepreneurial content?
I like this.
Make sure to subscribe for future episodes.
Already subscribed.
I just clicked on it.
Don't forget to like and leave a review. Share with a friend that needs this in their life.
I think you need this more than I.
Oh, and make sure to follow Scherrie on IG at Scherrie Speaks. And remember to play big faster.